The Fortnite World Cup in 2019 was the biggest esports event in history, with the solos tournament having a total prize pool of $15 million. 100 of the world's best players would play 6 games, and the $3 million that the winner received would make them the highest earning esports player of all time. So what happened to American 16-year-old Booga after he dominated the 6 games and took the title and the huge winner's prize with it? And why do so few of the 100 players still play the game, and what are they doing instead? We're here to find out. Let's start by looking statistically at how all the players did since the World Cup. Every line on this graph is a player, and it shows their performance in each season since then. I'm not going to lie, there are too many lines and it is extremely unreadable, so let's try and summarise. This second graph shows how many players remained active and how many were still successful as time went on. Nobody fully quit immediately, as shown by the 100% active in Season X, and almost 80% were performing at a high level. But Chapter 2 Seasons 2 and 3, around 6 to 12 months after the World Cup, showed a huge drop in how many of those players were still at the top, which I would guess was due to controller aim assist becoming a dominant factor in who was placing well. There was a recovery in Season 4 after aim assist was nerfed, but the downward trend continued from there until the present day, where around 22 players are still at a high level and 15 more are playing at all. This isn't a particularly high number, but any game that is still in its relative youth, as Fortnite was in 2019, will always have a high turnover rate. We're not here to primarily discuss that though, so let's focus now on the players who placed in the top 10. Starting with 10th place in the World Cup solo finals, we have Thatch, the French-speaking Canadian. While it pales in comparison to what the winner got, his $225,000 in winnings was still a huge payout for any young player. He has one of the most unusual trajectories since the World Cup, in that it is an upwards one. Clearly he had a great Season 9 when he qualified for the World Cup and then placed 10th in the final, but the following seasons were underwhelming. However, the last year has been a massive revival and he recently got his highest ever placement in a large tournament with 3rd in FNCS. The 9th place finisher Riversan is another player who had a bit of a revival later on, this time in Chapter 2 Seasons 6 and 7, when he claimed a solo FNCS title in the All-Star Showdown on the NA West region. He does still play a bit to this day, but has missed the last 4 big finals and looks to be well past his best unless he can somehow stage a second revival. The 7th and 8th places in the World Cup final went to 2 French players, Skite and Nate, who represented the same org at the time. Skite was a titan of the scene already who had carried on to World Cup success after winning Winter Royale in 2018, but it was Nate who generally had more achievements later on, with an FNCS Duos title arriving in 2020 and 2 other podium finishes in later seasons. Now that they've both left the game completely, their paths have converged again. Both Nate and Skite are playing Valorant seriously at the moment, and they hope to be picked up by pro teams in the future. Who knows, maybe we'll see them next to each other on a leaderboard there once again. In 6th place was Crew, the Swedish player who is often known these days as Trapix's old teammate. Indeed, they placed 22nd together in duos that same weekend, but Crew performed admirably in solos. After a couple more seasons of good performances, the motivation faded and he had totally quit by the end of 2020. I struggled to find out what he is actually doing now, but given that he was 16 at the time of the World Cup, I suspect he may have continued his education and is now living a life away from the pressures of professional gaming. The revelation of the World Cup Solos tournament was King, the Argentinian who most had never heard of as he played over in the Brazil region. His aggressive playstyle made him an instant fan favourite, and he finished with the 2nd most elims on his way to 5th place overall and just under 1 million in prize money. Unfortunately, after that, he faded from the consciousness of the large Europe and North American Fortnite fans, as the Brazil region is often forgotten by them. But he has been one of the only players to have played right at the top of the game for the entire time since then, winning 2 FNCS titles and of course signing to FaZe Clan, one of the most prestigious orgs in the world. He's arguably the GOAT of the Brazil region for Fortnite, and I'm looking forward to seeing him once more in an international LAN in November. Brio was our 4th place finisher who just missed out on the podium places at the World Cup, and that remains the highlight of his career, as flashes of promise have been intertwined with seasonal inconsistency, and there was also the 60-day ban in 2020 for arranging to trade Surge tags with another team, which Epic decided was serious enough to warrant a hefty punishment. Last season was particularly disappointing for him, but by his own admission he hasn't been trying hard enough and now claims he is going to turn that around. Maybe we'll see him back at the top, but for now 4th remains his best ever placement in a major tournament. We're onto our top 3 now, and wow, it has taken a long time for Epic Whale to get the recognition he deserves as one of the greatest to ever touch the game. He fell foul of the problem of not playing on EU or NA East, and despite winning pretty much everything possible on NA West, he still didn't garner the respect of everybody. It couldn't have been luck that he placed 3rd in this largest tournament ever at the World Cup and then won 6 FNCS titles. Yet some remained unconvinced until he went back to an international LAN event, which he duly won with Malabuka. The doubters have surely gone now. He is one of the greatest ever. End of story. Our runner-up from World Cup Solos 2019 has a totally opposite story to Epic Whale's consistent domination. Psalm never placed top 5 in a tournament again after this, and clearly didn't have his heart set on the game anymore. He was a meta master, able to adapt to anything that Fortnite brought into the game. He was so adaptable that he had already been an elite player in 6 other games before Fortnite, and so it was that a huge 1.8 million payout from Fortnite was enough to say that he could move on happy with what he had achieved. In 2020 he announced that he was moving over to Valorant, and after playing with Dignitas for a while he is now signed by The Guard, although is currently an inactive member. He's been playing a lot of Apex Legends recently, so who knows, maybe there will be yet another chapter in his storied gaming career. Lastly, our solo World Cup champion, Bugha. $3 million richer and a lot more famous, that day changed his life forever, and after the initial flurry of media attention and deals coming his way, he was able to continue playing at the top of the game. He has consistently been a top 10 player on NA East since then, but amazingly it took 11 attempts to finally win another major title in FNCS Chapter 2 Season 8. Another 2 titles have followed swiftly, and he shows no sign of slowing down in Fortnite. He has a line of gaming hardware in his name and new sponsorship deals being offered all the time, I'm sure. He's also remained with his org Sentinels this entire time since the World Cup, which is a very rare occurrence. So that wraps up our top 10, and as I said earlier, there are around 20 something players still at the top of the game, and others not mentioned so far include Aqua, Mr. Savage, Endretta, Snazy and Stompy on EU. Over on NA East we have Clicks, Commandment, Dubs, Bizzle, Cease, Bucky and Clarity G. And for other regions we have players like Peter Pan, Morphin and Leleo. Some others have left Fortnite very recently, such as Kinzel, Arkram and Benji Fishy. Others we simply don't know about, and we would require a private investigator as they left all their Fortnite socials and no trace of their current whereabouts remains. Some probably went back to education as many were young at the time of the World Cup, while others are pursuing any other game that takes their fancy. Of course, no discussion about a tournament can go without a little run through my tournament simulator, so I set up all the 100 players and ran it on my Twitch stream as if the tournament was happening today, so it used current player ratings and a modern point system. The winner after 6 games was Stompy, and while I don't think Stompy is the best player today from that World Cup lobby, it's a 6-game solo tournament, so many things can happen. To get a better idea of who the computer actually thinks is the best, I ran the tournament again, but with 200 games, and this time Aqua came out on top to add a solo win to his World Cup Duos title, and the rest of the top 5 was absolutely stacked with current talent as well. Many players will be wondering what would be different if they had managed to defeat Bugha that day, but we do know that this tournament changed all 100 players' lives and sent them all on different trajectories for the past few years and for the ones to come. Thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this, and see you next time.